Hey y'all, Jason here again from the D2, and I'm really happy to introduce another talk from the D2 Vienna 2018. Victor Bonafonte Morales from Beauty and the Bit debuted their long-awaited work, Landmark, at this year's conference. It's an absolutely beautiful work, highlighting what is possible even with a very small team of artists. You know what else is beautiful? These high-quality cutouts of Fabio, Christian, and myself. The fantastic folks at Visutil took a bunch of great photos of D2 attendees and have released it as a free collection. Not only that, but they're offering 20% off for their high-quality cutout collections in their online store for a limited time. You can find the link to the D2 collection and the 20% off coupon code right down below in the description. Once again, thanks for watching. And now, here's Victor presenting Landmark at the D2 Vienna 2018. See you soon.
Hi everybody. Hope all of you are having a great time at the D2 and feeling awesome. And welcome to this edition of the D2, the always kick-ass D2 conferences. It's a really special place for me because I think I made my first presentation about architectural visualization 5 years ago, I think in the first edition. So it's like being between the family. And I'm really proud to be here and to present this project here. So, as you can see here, and for all the people that doesn't know me, which may be a lot, my name is Victor Bonafonte, and as Fabio told, I'm an architect, I'm a visual artist, and Beauty and the Bit co-founder. And Beauty and the Bit is an architectural communication office. You can Google it. And yeah, I would ask you a big favor, ladies and gentlemen, and it would be, to respect our intention to keep this show confidential. And the reason is because we made a great effort to make this project happen. And we decided to present in a scoop and premiere here in Vienna. And this same video and more additional content will be online on our website maybe next week. So we wouldn't like to make any spoiler for anybody that couldn't attend the event. So, do we have a deal about this? Yep. Thank you, guys. You're awesome. I love you. And, well, here's a little video a lot of you have been waiting for a long time. So here it is, I think. Okay, so now I have your attention. It was my kind of way to break the ice because honestly I'm a little bit nervous. Normally when I do this kind of lectures I'm not nervous because it's something familiar with what we do, okay? But this project is really, uncomfortable, realm for us because it's something different, something personal that we've done. That's why I'm a little bit, nervous. So I have to calm down a little bit and Yep. Okay. So here's Landmark. It's like a highly anticipated and hype project on our side. So I think, all the hype is gone now. So let's go for the real thing. And I think that the lights are dimmed down, so that's great.
Voicemail number 30. Gosh, I'm freezing my balls out here. It's been 9 months since they sent me here as the replacement guy. Or so they said. In fact, it's been 5 years since they dismantled the whole place. Every day is exactly the same. White sky, dark sand, and me in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes I feel like that lost soul in that 70s Kubrick movie about a hotel. Jack whatever. I'm the IT guy in this mega server. Kind of a one-man army. King Midas. I've managed to make this house a home in my own way. I will admit, your letter changed everything. Sure it did. It is sad that everybody has some point of inflection in their lives, a moment of clarity in the haze. And now that point is in front of me, vivid, challenging. By the time you listen to this, I'll no longer be around. I guess I'll be gone, heading my landmark.
Thank you, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I think this is Landmark, and now the presentation is done. So thank you, all of you, for coming, and we can have some beers outside. And no, so what is Landmark? You will ask, and basically, Landmark is our first serious short film. We made some previous architectural animation, but not as ambitious as this project. And Landmark was entirely created in our offices and was conceived as a non-commercial project. So we don't earn any money from this. And it has an indie approach since we didn't want to have any artistic limitation. I mean, we were our own clients. Okay, so what is Landmark for us, for all the team in Beauty and the Beat? Honestly, it has been really a landmark in our career due to all the things that means to us. And it's been like a roller coaster and at the same time a breath of fresh air, because sometimes we feel a little bit limited by the clash between our art direction and some clients' expectations. So, but I guess this happens also to most of the people that is here. So it arrives a moment in any artist's career, if you're an artist and not a replicator, in which you need to take a little step back and take some risks and do what you truly feel in your heart. So you have to reinvent all the process. And Landmark was the backdoor to unleash all of our creativity. At a certain point this year, it was like kind of our secret lab. So we had some big limitations for this project, such as first, which was time, because the project had to be done in spare time, as it's not a non-commercial, it's a personal project, and we didn't have too much of that, because normally our schedule is really fully booked. So the expenses also for the project should be zero or around zero, since we were not going to be paid at all for this. And it is a project made with the intention of exploring other languages in architectural animation, because we feel that sometimes, and I repeat, sometimes, don't get me wrong, architectural animation has no soul, and it's more like a descriptive but vacuum media with no emotional content. So we were a bit tired of that, and we tried at least to do something different on our own. And I mean, we were not thinking about animating any cushions, beds, blankets, or 3D monkeys, you know, doing this in the animation, or boring fly-throughs. So we were thinking about something deeper and richer in nuances for us. So, so how Landmark was born? I had to say that on 2017, I was getting tired a little bit and bored from architectural events, I had to say, I had to be honest. And I felt a bit burnt out from all this, you know, chit-chat about rendering presets, modeling, VR, what's the future in our profession, or other topics that were not so exciting to me. So I felt I needed to be at another kind of events in which I could be a stranger and, you know, the odd boy that does architecture. And also other events that are not so focused in the technical part of computer graphics, but more in the emotional part. So I went to IMEG in Paris, and I had a blast with all the amazing lectures from worldwide renowned artists such as James Klein, Ash Thorpe, Raphael Lacoste. In fact, I did manage to meet this guy. He's a really nice guy. And I also hang around with, we also hang around with this French nice studio called Luxagon. You know them? Okay, I think they're there. And it was a really big night out and a really bad hangover the next day. So after that, I was invited to lecture at Mundos Digitales, a really famous animation-focused event in La Coruña in Spain. And the good thing at this event was that I was not on my element, meaning that not too many people was interested in architecture. So that was a good thing, forcing me to learn from other disciplines pretty far from our galaxy. So I was so amazed that even I got asleep on my own lecture, as you can see here. And so the next game changer for me was the Trojan Horse, was a unicorn event, a really special event by all means. And it was a whole week at the beach in Portugal, surrounded by a community of artists all over the world. So it was really inspirational, lectures from people like Masi Kuchara to David Levy. And I have to say it's a pity that I didn't see too many people involved in ArchBeat there. And I still wonder why. We were some of us, but not too many people. And maybe this is a very self-centered business, but there's a lot of learning from this. I mean, you can apply to architecture from all these fellas, honestly. And the reality is that a whole week in this environment gives you the time and space to start mentally sketching own ideas. And in fact, I think, yeah, in this event, I even applied to ILM as a personal joke with the guys in the studio. And I had to say at this point, a little seed of Landmark was installed in my mind. Okay, and last but not least, this is Lina, is the co-founder of Vienna in the Beat. It was the 3D Symposium in Barcelona, and I was invited to give a lecture. And even if I didn't want, I feel a little bit stressed. I accepted for three main reasons, to hang around with the Barcelona crew, which is marvelous, and then also for meeting personally Matthew Bannister from D-Box, an awesome guy, I think is also here, and they won yesterday a nice prize, well-deserved prize. And also Jaime Jasso from ILM. And in fact, his talk about doing his thing in ILM and how this is not so radically different from doing architecture was another important seed of Landmark for us. Because on his own words, he said that the difference between cinema and ArchBeat is that in ArchBeat, architects want everything tidy, clean, you know, while in cinema it's just the opposite. Everything has to be dirty, sandy, rusty, you know. So yeah, a cinematographic experience. And what we wanted to achieve with Landmark was that. It's basically bringing a cinematographic experience to the architectural animation. And we at Beauty and the Beat are obsessed with cinema from the very first beginning. And excuse me one moment. I mean, we love good movies, we love bad movies, but generally the cinematographical language and the deep storytelling that we can find at it. So we were talking about the project, and we thought, why if we try to bring that feeling, that strong storytelling to architectural animation? What if we conceive a short film that could be like the teaser of a bigger movie, you know? But at the same time that they spoke of architecture, we didn't want to make it like a too sci-fi thing, but still talking about architecture. So we tried to bring those elements from cinema to Landmark. And we tried to implement that, the smart composition element, the color language, and a strong storyline. So, we have to say that we learned a lot from cinema. And cinema was our main inspiration because we wanted to shoot a little movie, basically. And yeah, you can see a lot of cinema references that we pick for this. I guess that most of you would have seen these movies. And yeah, they're pretty awesome. So we thought that what made more sense would be to divide the short film with the usual categories used for filmmaking, like it's pre-production, production, and obviously post. So the pre-production phase was really decisive, as in any other creative process, because as I always say, this is the most important moment of the whole experience. I mean, it's where you start to define what it's going to be, and it is when you dream out the project. So if you work hard at this point, you can craft something really beautiful, splendid, or at the same time, you can completely fuck it up, you know? So it's a very important part of the process for us. So, the plot. First things first, and I needed to figure out what story we wanted to tell. So, what was the motivation? What was Landmark all about? And it's the hardest part, since, you have like a blank page to fill in. And the possibilities obviously are infinite. So, for good or for bad. So, Landmark is like a Matryoshka Russian doll store. You know these dolls? So it's like an inception of another inception of another inception. It speaks about the mutability of architecture and about how architecture adapts to users, so it can change program from a big auditorium to like a giant mega server and to like the private living room of the guy that is living there. So it portrays how chameleonic architecture can be. And also Landmark is the story of a really specific environment, which describes how architecture can't be dissociated from a specific time and place. And also we tell this story from the perspective of a special character that lives there, but in a transient way, who is the IT guy. So Landmark has like three main characters then, that we could say, and all of them has the same importance to us. The architecture, the landscape, and then the IT guy himself. So I don't want to explain too much more about the plot, since good stories are the ones that leave a bit of headroom for personal interpretation. And storyboard. The first thing was to elaborating the short film was crafting a little and rough storyboard. So I remember I was in a plane flight, and normally I always carry with me my sketchbook. So at that point I had some hours for me, and I felt good and started doing a really, really rough scheme. As you can see, it's like a really crappy line art and bad looking drawings, since I'm not a professional storyboarder. But the main idea was to make a raw guideline for my team of what I was thinking for the story. And again, it's not a matter of being really a virtuoso in sketching, but to express ideas clearly, okay? So after that, first really rough approach, I made some more elaborated and detailed storyboard. Nothing too fancy, as you can see, but this time included several details about mood, about camera movements, about the storyline nuances, etc., etc. And though it's still really schematic, it served its purpose, because which was having a first approach to the story. And what is really curious in a way is that lots of these little drawings were really close to the final story. In fact, some of them were nearly some direct translation, which brings me to the point I discussed previously, and it's that the better you do your pre-production, the better the result will be. And it is wiser to spend more time at this phase of the process, because it will save you later on lots of time and worries in your head. So yeah, it was like kind of a more elaborated storyboard for the film. You can see all the faces, and yeah. So previous, we needed to put all of this in motion, obviously. So I think Saba told yesterday that the importance of the previous is in doing some animation. So we elaborated a really rough previs that showed all our ideas for the film. And we presented, what we presented was a really rough and super crude architecture model in order to have some notion of the scale, of the brutal scale, and how that would integrate with the environment we were thinking of. So we gave the storyboard its natural evolution step. And what you're seeing here is like the first iteration of the previous. I think it's a double speed for demonstration purposes. And it's a really important part of the process, since again, all the success or fail of the project resides here. And it is like putting a bad camera in a static image, or making a bad composition, or telling a boring and dull story. Okay, so I had to say that previous was invaluable to us, since it helped us to imagine how this story could be. And it put in motion all of our static sketches, ideas, and gave us an emotional link with Landmark. So at some point, these rough previouses trigger out something in our imagination that help out to construct new ideas based on it. So we consider it important also to include music on the previouses, even if it was a temporary piece, since it would help us to feel the experience deeper and to put us on the mood for it. So it added even more emotion to all the experience and helped out our imagination. For obvious reasons, I took out the music for the presentation, but it was there from day one. Sorry, I have to say no, day two, because the first previous was with another temporary piece of music. Okay, but also the previous helped us to see if there were shots that didn't work in terms of camera movement, since we wanted to preserve a natural feeling between all the shots. So at one time or another, we had to dismiss some shots, even if they were cool, okay, in favor of a better whole picture. And it's important to say that these processes weren't like watertight compartments at any point, since we had to go back and forth sometimes and readjust things in general. Okay, so it is a wise decision to keep a flexible mind about all of this. So other than that, what you can see in this video is, it's two more iterations at some point or another of the whole process. The first one that you have just seen is a very advanced version of the short film, and this last one is like a swipe A/B between like the first preview of the film and then the comparison with the final shot. So it's curious for the same reason I repeat again and again. If the idea is spot on from the very first moment, I think that the rest is just a mere question of production, of refining or adding details, and the leap between the viewport capture and the final story, the final shot feels pretty natural. So yeah, this is like the comparison and for example, that shot was erased in the end. It was a killer one, but we had to dismiss that for these reasons I explained. Yeah, so previous was really helpful for us for developing the project. And planning, this is like a boring part for me especially, but honestly, it's one of the most important, because we had a really tight schedule since we had to compress the time frame of the project from 1 year, that was my initial goal or idea, to 6 months to arrive here to Vienna and present it, because I spoke with Fabio and with Jason and told them, guys, I think this is the place to present this project. So we're going to be a little bit fucked up because we have the half of the time for doing or developing the project, but this is the place to do it. So we had to be extremely efficient with time. It was a really difficult task since, as you know, we made this in spare time, as I said, and our agenda is always full. So we made constant revision of the timeline at what was needed to be done to achieve that goal. So finally we made it, but it's really important to have all these internal deadlines really well defined. If you don't have, you don't want to, have a really bad time. So in this slideshow, you can see the evolution of that planning with some color codes, and obviously what was finished, what was nearly finished, or sometimes untouched, which was really stressy at some point or another of the process. So production, yeah, it's time to pass over to the production phase. And for us, pre-production is more related with the brain, maybe, and the production is more pure muscle. So, sorry. So architecture. I mean, obviously, there were several parts involved in the pre-production, and one important part was the architecture itself, obviously. So architecture was a main character of the movie, so we needed to design something that was suitable to our needs. So we started investigating in some rough shapes. We wanted something like imposing and really edgy. And we came across some brutalist architecture, really essentialist in terms of shape, and also with a really big scale. Because we wanted to avoid friendly architecture. Because, I mean, we wanted something there and not so politically correct in these days we live in, where everything has to have green roofs and, extruded matrices and this kind of stuff. So we wanted something more like a fortress and a shelter in the wild. And supposedly, this was a convention hall converted to a giant mega server. Hence, the idea was to craft something, smashing and, something really brutal. So, ironically, this was the hardest part of the process for us, because even most of Beauty and the Beat members, we are architects. We are used to be served with architecture from the client side. So the problem now was that we were our own clients, and again, we had an empty canvas to fill. So while normally we already had an architectural proposal from day one, and our unique goal is to showcase it, to polish it, and make it look the most photogenic way, in the most photogenic angle. Now we had to create that architecture from the scratch. So the main problem with that was, again, that we had so many options available that sometimes you can be really, it can be really overwhelming. And even you have a plot that works and an environment that looks good, one of the main characters is still missing. So we had several brainstorming sessions with architectural references, and they served us to discard several proposals that, although they look really nice, in the end they didn't fit in the whole picture. So I have to say that all the references we gather around the past several design filters had some things in common, which were, first, a huge scale, since we needed that the size of this space was startling and made you feel like tiny, and a little, and maybe some uncomfortable. So we also wanted simple and angular, edgy shapes that, in a certain way, looked threatening, and we needed a building that defied the environment, like saying, "Hey, here I am," So also we needed rough facade material, nothing too fancy or really high tech, but more like bunker look-alike, with several openings to the landscape, but in a controlled way. We wanted only to suggest the interior and not show everything from all the angles, such as normally all architects want you to do. So, once we had all these precedents in mind, we started testing several architecture options with really rough and basic models, as you can see here. And some of them were crazier than others, but we took our time to decide which one fit best with the whole picture. And as you can see in this video, we played and mess around with some of them with very basic modifications, warping them, twisting them, scaling them to search for a nice and balanced volume. And instantly some of the proposals fell apart. Well, we had several options that were really radical, no, and sexy looking, but that last a lot more time during the revision rounds. And in the end, we chose the landmark building, this one. And as you can see in this video, there were several iterations of it, and we had to refine the shape and all the details it had. So, prior to that choice, we had to put all these options together in some environmental studies because we needed to convey that, defying the elements vibe in the building. So there was not another way to see this than, integrating this into the place. So, we had some back and forth, but we finally, this one is crazy, I love this one. And we finally made our minds. And I have to say that some of them could have ended up being the landmark building, but for some reason or the other, we chose that one. We had in mind that at one point when we chose this one, okay, we arrived to a point that the next step was to define the degree of permeability that the building would have, no, with the environment, because we had in mind, as I said, that it had to be like a timid and show the essential parts. So the building would open strategically to the landscape. That is why we made some opening studies in the facades to search, the most suitable holes on it. So, I think this is the last model from Landmark. As you can see, it's really simple and not too complicated, but we made some really cool lighting studies. In fact, I love some of this camera. I love this one. Once we arrived to this final decision about the architecture, we made some more extensive texturing tests because we wanted to, give it a rough and weather concrete feel, but it was also important not to make it too noisy, okay, and in a way that the texture competed too much with the form of the building, such as this case. So after several tests, we think that we found the right balance. And as you can see in this presentation, once all this was settled up, we made again some quick sketches of the overall design of the building, and we were good to go. So we also made some turntables of the building to verify that it was handsome looking, and from all the angles, and that the proposal was strong enough in all directions. And another difficulty was to preserve contrast between several faces of the facades. Several facades of the building, since, as I will say afterwards, the climatology and the lighting of the place was really specific, and it was really tricky. So it was not an easy task. And here you can see some alternative takes and some leftovers of the architecture that they look pretty right for me. And honestly, this was one of the most challenging tasks we have had in our career so far. But we can say that we are happy and satisfied with it. So, environment. Then came the environment, and I have to say this was, as I mentioned, a process that merged together at some point or the other, since all fronts had to be covered. So at one point of the process, we were developing everything in parallel. So the environment, it was something so important in this film. We could say this is like another lead character in it. So we made a lot of research, and we wanted something that was recognizable as a real place on Earth, And we also needed to emphasize the sense of a scale. So it had to be a really extensive landscape which transmitted a sense of isolation. And it had to convey at the same time a notion of calmness, but also of solitude and melancholy. And we imagined something really rocky, sharp, edgy, and something really aligned with the building design, and something full of edges and polished. So we wanted also something very specific for the color palette. Since we wanted something really neutral in color, I mean, in the end, the building was going to be gray or white. So we needed something not too colorful, but maybe with a little accents. So all of this inevitably led us to a place on Earth that can convey all these emotions, and it was Iceland. So we found there all the ingredients to make a nice backplate for the movie. And so we collected hundreds of references from there, and we came across to this Reynisfjara. Sorry for my, I don't speak. I mean, somebody from Iceland here? No? Okay. So that beach with all that black sand amazed us. Okay, so we thought that this kind of volcanic environment and would help a lot to keep that dramatic mood and that sense of unpolished nature. So also we would have a neutral color palette merging together, the darks of the ground and the grays of the building. So we found the perfect whites for the color palette in those volcanic smokes from the fumaroles that came from the ground. And afterwards, we added the perfect color accent on the mountains. So we were amazed by these mountain shapes in shocking green color. And they are mossy kind of mountains with no trees, so they fit perfectly with the plan. Okay? So we also love the idea that the building was embraced by all these mountains. So in the end, you never had a clear, long view of the horizon. Okay? So last but not least, we had to think about the climate and the general lighting of the film. Okay, so we were thinking in doing something really solid in terms of lighting in the entirety of Landmark, and that is why we didn't want to present several lighting conditions. And obviously, we weren't thinking about this overused time-lapse kind of predictable stuff. So we thought that what felt completely in place would be an overcast condition, because everything would have a color palette based in grayscales and the green of the mountains. So also the overcast weather would reinforce the sense of solitude, of drama and melancholy, so everything was perfect to us. And then we already had an environment in the box. So we had to make a big differentiation for the environment shots for obvious reasons. I mean, depending on the scale of the shot and the amount of environment, it seemed intelligent for us to proceed technically in one way or the other, because especially for the long distance shots, we judged convenient to do something closer to cinema. So instead of replicating all in 3D, because we had no time to do this, we had to trick the eye with some nice matte painting techniques, and afterwards projecting that matte painting elements over geometry to create a nice parallax. And this approach was way quicker for us in the end. And the result was pretty convincing, since all came from an image. And actually lots of images, as you can see here. But in the end, it paid dues for us, I have to say. And it's not a question of doing everything in CG, but to give the most practical solution to problems. So once we had some nice matte painting, we dissected them and project them over a really, really rough and basic geometry, really crappy, as you can see here, because it is not necessary, at least with this type of organic shapes, to have really well-defined geometry for the projection. With just some planes with some deformation and smoothing, that would do the trick. So in the end, the aim is to accentuate the sensation of movement and the formation of the objects when they approach to the camera. So also a good thing was that being just a plain texture material, the rendering was super quick. And in fact, in this shot, the only thing that took a little bit more time was implementing the scene, the architecture, because it was the only thing that was rendered properly. And once all those renders were done, lots of improvements were applied in post with nice amount of atmospheric effects and stuff like that. But we will take about that a little later on. Okay, so for the close shots that involve animation of the environment, we modeled some things, and also we had an awesome support in the Megascans library. Everybody knows them, and for obvious reasons, they sped up our workflow in these kinds of scenes notably. The good thing about them is, as you can see in the video and the demonstration, you can easily compose a nice scene really fast, and the workflow is like pretty drag and drop. You maybe precise just a little tweaks afterwards, but it works really fast, no? So the good thing about this is that it allows you to spend less time on the technical realm of the work and spend much more time on the artistical side of it. And it is really important in any artistic job for me to use the right hemisphere of your brain. Okay, if not, everything can be perfectly controlled and tidy, but soulless in the end. So, the people that know me a little bit, they know that I'm the anti-technology man. But honestly, it's not exactly like that. What I think is that what I always consistently repeat is that as an artist, you never should put technology before using your brain. So technology is wonderful if you know how to use it at your service and not the opposite. Okay, so technology should help in making your life easier and not more complex sometimes. So if you show off, for example, that until the last piece of your image is, or shot or whatever, is completely modeled, even the door fittings, the last screw, for me, that's completely useless. It makes no sense. But yeah, well, end of the rant. Sorry. And so I contacted Teddy from Quixel, and told him about the project, and they felt pretty enthusiastic about it from minute one. And we have to say that again, we have made a nice artistic use of the Megascans, and they helped us a lot in some kind of shots that precise, more pure 3D elements. And when we had the occasion to cheat with photos and projections, we did it that way, and as all the people in cinema do. The aim is, again, to cheat the eye and do things in less time, so which means you have more time for your free time, for your life, no? And I think in the end is the most intelligent way to proceed, don't you think? I think. So, also here you can see some other assets, turntables we created for the environmental part of the project. And again, as you can see, it was nothing too crazy, but in the end, really, really effective for us. And there's a nice story. It's really funny because the precise week that we were wrapping up the project, I mailed all our supporters with a rough edit of the film. And at that time, Teddy from Quixel and all his team was flying. They were on Iceland on location to shoot some Megascans or whatever. And I was talking with him, and it was like, they made a nice video that they posted like 1 month ago, something like that. And I said, fuck. Could all this trip could have been earlier, so we would have those Megascans from Iceland. But shit happens. That's what happened. So, in about assets, I will talk a little bit about the assets in the film. The assets were really important for us, especially for some of the interior shots. The thing is that we didn't plan to make thousands of them, but the ones that we used, we wanted them to be really special and with a little love implied. So for the interior spaces, we were recreating the IT guy playground. So he was kind of a Jack Torrance from The Shining. And this guy, to avoid getting crazy in that place, in that God-forgotten place, he starts to reconvert part of this mega server in his own playground. So that led us to make some like kind of thematic spaces for him. So obviously the idea was to never see him, but those assets and belongings, had to speak about him in a certain way. And hence the need of working deeper on the assets. And but because they should talk about him and perspire about this guy. So as in the rest of the film, we didn't want something completely conventional. So we had to dirty our hands at some point and elaborate dedicated assets for this. And other points we made some asset cannibalism taking things from here and there, and making strange mixes between all the assets. So, I mean, the rule of thumb was not to implement any conventional 3D block. In fact, I mean, there was a penalty in the studio for anybody that used any fucking Alvar Aalto or Jacobs and chairs, because, I mean, the mere sighting of them, it makes me puke a little bit. I mean, it's not that I don't like them. It's like we use them all days in our usual stuff, so I can't help it. I mean, it's like when you have a surfeit of sweet or something like that. So, yeah, then we added some extra touch of griminess, of weather material look. And yeah, we did some substance painting, and it's also a great tool for adding that extra degree of dirt, that gives more believability. And yeah, it's super funny and friendly to use. And the good deal with this software is that you can completely change the appearance of materials with lots of what a flair, with lots of awesome brushes to add that extra dirt. And remember that our aim was to make the experience as cinematographic as possible. So as you know, in real life, things are normally stained, weathered, and they're not so polished anymore. So we also consider a nice twist to include lots of Easter eggs of pop and rock culture in the film, because it's part of us. It is something we cannot dissociate from our regular work and lives. So if you take a closer look when we upload the project, and if you're geek enough, you can try to spot all of them. Okay, it will be like kind of a Pokemon competition between all of us. And this a little bit about those assets. I think it was a really funny part of the process. This one we enjoyed a lot. Okay, so again, we constructed several turntables of the assets that help us as a powerful tool to check out if they were working and looking good in the production or not. You can see the one with the car, and as I mentioned about Easter eggs, this one is more than evident. I mean, it portrays our love for Radiohead and David Bowie, and also for the movie Alien. I don't know if you remember those birdies. Statues they had in the Nostromo spaceship. So I mean, obviously the degree of detail was distance dependent, meaning that if something was going to be in a medium or a long shot, obviously it wouldn't have the same amount of details, since it won't be necessary and nobody would appreciate it. This said, I mean, this was the IT guy desktop asset, and we had a really, really strong asset work in these last shots of the film, and the IT desktop was especially detailed, and it's made with lots of love, because I have to say that if you take a closer look, you can see it here in this, but I mean, all the text that is written on the computer is a text related to Beauty and the Beat. I think it puts our address or whatever it is, or phone number or whatever it is, but yeah, this was really, and this was the one for the servers scene. And I mean, the funny fact in this one is that all these little pulsating balls from the servers in the end were done in post-production, because they were so little that they made super strange flickering, but in a bad way, so we had to fix it later in post-production. And this is the deck set. And as I said, all of this was done with lots of love. So when you do that, you can recognize it, I think, at the first glimpse. So you can check out in all this set of leftovers some alternative takes and some test scenes for that implied assets, and they look really badass for me. I love that one, and this one is great. So everybody okay? Okay. I'm talking too much. And last but not least is the post-production. Okay. So this is a really important part of the process, and especially for us, because as you know, Beauty and the Beat is a really post-production studio, and normally we put a lot of muscle in this part of the job. Okay. But honestly, I think that talking about animation and also about doing something with this cinematographic approach put us in a position in which we needed to trick the eye a lot, also because of the time constraints. So as I said, I mean, those resources and time constraints were too many, so we needed to leave lots of things for this phase of the process. And some of the shots, for example, such as this one, were completely made in comp with matte painting, camera projection techniques. And this way we obviously avoided modeling such vast environments, and the shot could be changed in a really fast way since rendering times were minimum. And so we added lots of atmospheric effects that were 2D because we didn't have time to make them in Houdini or with other program that simulates particles. And what I love about this kind of shots is that, I mean, you can start seeing the result in pretty little time. It's like maybe in one day, one artist and his work made like a basic matte painting and a really rough projection. So the next day, the shot could be finalized, okay? So also the degree of realism is quite acceptable since, as I said, it's all generated from real photos, which is the closest we can get to reality. And some other shots weren't so massive in terms of post-productions, since the main raw render already was pretty complete from the very first moment. But I think it's evident that some post enhanced the experience. I mean, just adding some real photo references for the mountains, and some smoke, some dust, some particles that help out the general mood and made it more attractive and complex. Well, it was really simple setup. I mean, again, it's a matter of tricking the eye. And this is one of my personal favorites since I learned a lot from this scene, technically speaking. And I think it was one of the first projections we did, and still I feel it's really awesome shot. And basically I redid this shot several times because each time I finished it, I felt there were things to improve, such as giving more three-dimensional effect to the foreground rock, or adding these little rocks that made the big volcanic ground not so dull, but with some little noise and give several scales to it. So also creating a nice effect for the smoke was approached for the very first time here. This is one of my, this is a quite simple yet effective image. In fact, it's like a static render, and the rest was completely made in post-production. And we thought that some movement on the extra elements would give nice feeling to it all. And oh man, where did this finally? Okay, yeah, this is a funny story about this. And I mean, it's me with my kid. No, my kid is like 6 years old, and I always imagined that when he got to this age, he would be running around for the studio, seeing things, and he would be excited about what we do. And so he was in the studio, seeing the film, what we were doing, that was in terms of production still. And as he's a big Star Wars fan, well, both of us, and he told me, hey, Daddy, this scene would be far better with the Millennium Falcon, and not this boring building. So as I said, yeah, that could be cool. And I always take my promises with my kid really serious. And yeah, we made it happen in the end, and it drew a big smile on his face and also on mine. So yeah, this is the story behind this. And well, in this presentation, you can see the several steps in the production for the film, from clay render to the raw render of the scenes, and then the comp phase, and finally the color grading for the film. And obviously, all these phases in the production add complexity, visual depth, and elaboration to the final thing. So we preferred raw renders pretty flat in terms of effects, so no defocus, no error perspective, and because that was treated in post-production. So I think post-production is meant for that, especially. So you can save lots of time and provides you more flexibility, and also the possibility of changing things much faster. So in the post phase, we made normally a first color correction, some first approach, but afterwards it was graded in the final edition. Okay, because in the grading phase, the goal is to glue all the things together with similar values in terms of contrast and also color to make it look like more homogenic. And so you feel that, all belongs to the same movie. So I mean, we normally don't like LUTs, since, I mean, LUTs are like brushes in post-production. I mean, they are made by artists who use them according with their specific needs. So, I mean, you can't expect from putting a LUT that is called Interstellar that your movie is going to look like some Nolan film. So, I mean, for grading, we think that it's better to use your sensibility and trust your eyes, so you'll find a nice color balance in the darks, the mids, the highlights, everything. Okay. So it's so fucking strange to see these scenes passing in just like 2-3 minutes, because that was this is a work of 7 months' time. So it's really odd. So well, I think it's time to wrap up, guys. I feel more relaxed right now, and I would like to thank all of you for having the time to share with you, to attend to the event and see this. That was, I repeat, made with lots of love on our side, because we think it's always important to, in this profession, to appraise the VAR a little bit and do something that is not, that are personal projects that maybe are riskier, but in the end they make sense for you as a company. So firstly, I would like to thank all of you guys. I love you. And I also would like to thank all the people that have helped us to make this little dream come true. Because at one point or the other of the process, I mean, they helped us out. And so hats off to you guys. Thanks Teddy and Eric from Quixel. Thanks Alex and Vladi from Chaos Group and Vera Cloud. Thanks Alex from CGI Farm. I love you, man. And thanks Adrian from Athken. And obviously Jason, Christian, and Fabio from the D2. You rock, guys. Thanks. I will take advantage of this occasion to say that we are always hiring new talents. We need people that see things a bit different from the norm. So if you are that kind of guy, girl, and you're really badass, please stay in touch with us, okay? And I would also like to share with you some little thoughts or learnings I found during the project. They're really basic, but it's like, don't build the opinion of what you do based on some other people's comments. I mean, just follow your heart, your intuition, because commenting and criticizing is easy and cheap. But having the guts to do something, it's a whole different thing. And don't do things to please somebody else. Just do things to please yourself. Don't follow rules if they're stupid, and keep reinventing yourself. Okay, it's a unique way to keep growing as an artist. And don't expect to be in any exciting new place in 5 years if you keep doing the same thing again and again. Work your ass off, be self-critic with what you do, and have lots of fun. And don't chase money exclusively, because money makes living easier. It's obvious. But don't be so ignorant to be exclusively focused on money or building a bigger company for the mere fact of having money. And chase excellence, chase quality, chase beauty in all what you do. But in the end, do something in your life that makes you smile and happy and be a positive guy. So thanks, everybody. I would like to make one last thing, Fabio, and it would be to invite all my beautiful and animal team to get over the stage and share this moment with me. So come on, guys, stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, Beauty and the Beat team.
Beauty and the Beat.